Howdy, everybody. Bob Tallman for No Spin Rodeo. No politics, no BS, just hard-hitting news and rodeo commentary from two of the most trusted sources in our sport. Kendra Santos, Tommy Joe Lucia. Listen up. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to No Spin Rodeo. I'm Tommy Joe Lucia. I'm joined by the First Lady of Pro Rodeo Journalism, Kendra Santos. Welcome to this episode. How are you? It looks like you're, judging from the background, you're in Oklahoma.
I'm in Oklahoma, and today's Oat's birthday. And
oh, happy birthday, Oat.
Thanks. He's waving from the living room. Twist is, this is a first, and I do not know how this can happen, but Facebook declared to the world that it was my birthday today. So all these people are texting, calling, and writing things on Facebook, which is so nice. How did that happen? It's never happened before. They said it was my birthday, but it's really his. Odd. But anyway, happy birthday to them.
I don't know how that stuff happens. Donna got hacked, and it took us 45 minutes to figure out what you do when you get hacked. So this Facebook thing, yeah, it's a lot. Well, good afternoon. You look charming as normal. So it's Kendra and I, and we're going to run through today's episode. We're not going to have any guests. We're going to run through just what we know and what we want to talk about, or what's going on right now in rodeo. Kendra, if it's all right with you, I think I'll just do a quick catch up of where I've been this week. Been traveling hard. Did go to the Governor's Cup, went to Sioux Falls for a set of meetings and the first performance. Before I give you some of the deets, some of the inside scoop of the meetings, fantastic event, that first performance. Mr. Lemo, who we had on earlier, it was a great event, very well done, great competition, and the production quality was very, very, very high. And it was a great event. Went to some meetings, PRCA meetings, and had some other meetings. And I'm pulling out of this. Hopefully all of this stuff is public, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. And then I guess they can sue me. So did think this was interesting. 828 PRCA events were sanctioned in 2025. 828. Here's what I take of that little take, and then I'll let you comment, and I'll just keep going through my list. More events. So they have more events, but they don't have more qualified judges. That could be a problem. If you're going to increase events, you're probably going to need to make sure you increase your judge base. The other interesting, they're going to need more contestants if they're going to keep approving more events. And so back on the contestant line, one of the things that was discussed is that the permit applications have increased in 2025. Yay. The membership, however, is flat. So again, if you're going to have more events, and I don't actually know how the 828 compares to 2024, but that's a lot of events. I remember a 600 number being thrown around for a while. But you're going to have to, your membership can't be flat if you're going to continue to add events. So that's the first bullet point I learned. Any comment on that little piece of data?
Well, yeah, 600 and some PRCA rodeos does sound like that was the number for a long time. So if you're talking about adding a couple hundred, that sounds like a lot.
Well, and that probably includes, it said events. They said events, which probably includes the standalone events, which, by the way, as Rory Lemmel mentioned, and I verified in Sioux Falls, they are doing a standalone steer wrestling event in 2026. You're probably aware of that, or the big guy in the room trying to figure out the remote on the TV probably is. And so then another impressive number, $80 million in prize money in 2025, total prize money. That's a $4.2 million increase from 24. Now, if I remember right, at the NFR in 24, they were talking about a $3 million plus increase. And I know that those guys were, these type of increases in overall payout year after year, it'll be incredible if this continues. But to add $4.2 million to the payout in 25 is great for the athletes, and hats off to the PRCA, but 80 million in prize money. What say you, Kendra, on that?
Okay, well, so just Lady Stickler, I'm just curious, is that actual paid to contestants, or does that include money paid to stock contractors and all that, like they do at the NFR? Like the NFR, they're saying 14 million, but it's not 14 million going to the contestants. So I always ask just the breakdown on that, and I don't know what it is on this.
Well, even if it's just to the contestants, it's less 6%. A lot of the contestants.
I hope it's just to the contestants, but I just don't know.
I can't clarify that. All I was told is $80 million. Whatever number they've used every year to reach their benchmark, but we probably should clarify what's included in that. Yeah. So the next thing that I thought was interesting, which you may know, and again, I don't know if this is released yet, but I'm going to say it. The winners from the Texas Permit Circuit Finals are seeded into Rodeo Houston.
Texas Permit Circuit Finals winners.
They're not circuit finals. They're, the Texas Permit Finals. I don't know the exact name, but the permit finals that they have in Texas at Waco, it's the Permit Challenge, or I don't know the exact name. The winners of that are seeded into Houston.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting for me because I have mixed feelings about the whole, I'm part of me really applauds. Like, for example, unless something has changed or I missed something, like the Texas Circuit Finals, I'm like, more power to you. Like, do they not have more, maybe even more rounds than everybody else? They have more money that you can win.
Well, and I don't think it's the circuit finals. It's the permit. I got to get the right name.
But I'm talking about something different because we're talking about Texas. Part of me is like, more power to you. If you guys raise more money, good for you. And then there's another, my other hand is going, well, here's this circuit over here that is lucky to get enough to win it, to have maybe 2 rounds, and you win a tiny fraction of the money. And when it all counts toward the world standings, it gets interesting for me.
Yeah, but these guys can compete. If you do so many events in a circuit, you can go to that circuit finals, and But how do you can't make it a communistic payout across the board. The bigger circuits pay more money.
I think you've tried to call me that before, and I'm certainly not a communist.
I didn't say that. I said a communistic payout.
Okay. I'm just saying I can kind of see both, because I'll tell you this. I've listened to cowboys make this argument and this argument. And I think they have some valid points on each side. I think it's worth discussing. And hey, okay, Texas, you said permit circuit finals winners go to Houston. That is
no. I did not say that. It's the permit, not the circuit finals. The permit, Holly, I should Google the name. They have a permit finals that's just permit holders in Waco.
But only in Texas.
It's just in Texas, I think, and it's only permit holders. And the essence of this is a permit holder. This year's permit holder is going to be seeded into Houston next year that wins that event.
Well, that is like, the people who get it are going to be thrilled, but everybody has to understand, on the flip side, that kid is leapfrogging everybody else, having to spend a whole year to be in the top place, right? So there's just 2 sides to every story. So, at least let's put them on the table. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And remember, folks, the other day at Mandan, huge rodeo right at the end of the season. And there were 4 rodeos, including, I remember Dickinson specifically, but the winners of those 4 rodeos got automatically seeded into Mandan. It's not the same as Houston, but
I just think that you've got to try to give opportunities. Also, you've got to balance opportunities for different levels of competitors to gain that confidence and make some money and get up there, instead of just going, everybody gets in on every dollar won, and Yeah, I just think you have to balance it. And agreed, there's two sides to it. The people that don't get in, I get it. Not that, that the others did, that's all fine. But we probably won't ever. I mean, but there's two sides. That's what you're saying. And I think it's a good thing. And I understand where you're coming from a contestant that might not make it because of that. And that's worked all year.
The one guy who went all year and gets bumped out by some kid who went to one event is not going to think it's very, very cool. But anyway, go ahead.
I think it's cool. This one's cool. And I did double check this to make sure, and I didn't find an error in it. Everyone who qualified the top 15, the 15th person in every discipline has won over 100 grand going into the NFR. Now, the standings are not, I don't think, well, that's a problem. I have no idea if the current, what I see when I look up the standings are currently updated with Sioux Falls or not. I just really don't know. I think the Cowboys know better than those of us that are just fans and trying to figure it out. But the number 15th hole, it looked like most everybody had won at least six figures going into the NFR. That's cool. That's a first.
Is it a first?
I heard it was a first. Yes, that's why I brought it up.
I don't know. I just know in the last few years, I know in some of the, especially in some of the timed events, that there's been a lot of talk about, it used to be there was kind of a magic number. And like, for example, in the calf roping in recent years, the magic number is much higher than it used to be just in the last very recent years.
Well, in one of Hanshy's articles that I read, he said, well, that I thought I needed to have 110. Then it was 115. Then it was 125. And that's just an example of the revenues in the business. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So the next thing, remember when we talked about the Dale Brisby, Cody Webster kind of Peyton cast of rodeo? And I think it was of Puyallup. Remember we talked about that? Where those guys sat over, there was it was Teton Ridge supported it. Those two guys sat over there. And if you've ever seen the Manning cast, those guys kind of talk randomly about random stuff while the football game's playing, and they make comments on the football game.
I don't remember this because I didn't see it. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so they did it. And I thought it was just with Dale Brisby, but it's interesting that Teton Ridge actually did that. They took influencers, non-rodeo influencers. And I haven't found any of those streams yet. I haven't looked. But non-rodeo, so just random influencers that have a lot of following, and let them commentate or comment on the rodeo. So one may think that's great. One may think that's risky, but they did do that. And I don't know if it's something that they'll repeat, but I called it the Brisby cast, but they did it with other people. So, I don't know. 2026, the PRCA is celebrating their 90th. And they're rolling out a bunch of marketing materials about that, including kind of a brand and a mark that brings back some of the traditional stuff. And you may know more about this being the first queen of media, but they are encouraging rodeo committees like ours at Salt Lake and stuff to be thinking about the 90th and what we can do to celebrate that with the PRCA. So there's that.
90.
Mm-hmm.
Is that talking about? Are we talking about the turtles? Is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, the in October, I think it was, there's whatever date it was in October where the turtles walked out. That's the beginning of and so it's a 90 year. That's what they're marking. Breakaway in 2026.
I know what we should do to celebrate the 90th of the turtles walking out, the Cowboys walking out, is we should do everything we can think of to make rodeo better for the contestants.
Granted, you do that by making rodeo great for the fans because they help get sponsors and money for the contestants, but we're on the same page. In 2026, I'm pretty sure that the PRCA, the breakaway, will kind of fully move over to the WPRA. There's been kind of a hybrid thing going on there, but I do believe that the breakaway will fall strictly all of it under the WPRA. Now, I don't know. I can't answer all of the logistics of that because I haven't studied, but how's
that different than barrel racing?
Well, it's not, but I think that the PRCA has been more actively involved in the breakaway. Now, again, I don't know the specifics of that, whether it's how entries are taken. I know all of the WPRA entries go through the office, but the comment was made that the WPRA will totally manage breakaway in 2026, indicating that they weren't totally managing breakaway now to me. Now, I don't know the specifics of how or why. So, no, anyway. I have a list, not here with me, but I did get the list of the 2026 tour events. They're going to release that relatively soon to the public. I can't release it. But, rodeos are vying to be on that tour list, to be a tour rodeo. And it was mentioned that all of the very lowest tour rodeo, number 60, is adding over $200,000.
So something was said at Sioux Falls, or somebody, or Rory said it, that a lot more money was added in 2025 because rodeos wanted to be in the top 60 so they could be a tour rodeo.
Yep.
So it's just top 60 based on added money, period.
Correct.
That's good for contestants.
Yeah. And so that's that. The only other thing, kind of a funny thing, last thing I did, flew home, and Donna, my wife, works with the Texas Rattlers. So we went to Dickies Arena. The PBR had their team event there. Interesting. I counted like 19 production semis out there for the PBR. That team's event is highly produced. It's a really good event. And if you ask me what is your takeaway from the PBR teams event, I'm going to show you. If you're watching, if you're listening to the podcast, I have a 2.5 foot shot of Cody Lambert, just his head, which I find incredibly funny and incredibly unique. And I'm going to put it up on my wall by Jerome Robinson just so I can send Cody a picture that I've got a fat head, meaning this. He doesn't have a fat head. I want him to whip me. But they do this stuff. They got all their team players, and they've got their heads and they're bouncing them around. And I just found it incredibly kind of alarming and funny, the Cody Lambert one. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, you see that. If you're listening to the podcast, it's just a really big shot of Cody Lambert that I just held up. And that's it. That's been my week. What about you there, lady?
Well, I think most people in rodeo were definitely like all eyes on the richest rodeo in South Dakota, right? Sioux Falls. I don't know if every contestant in every event, I can't imagine that the tour deal is not on everybody's radar. And when they're planning out 2026, I mean, all talk before Sioux Falls was like, who's in and who's out of Sioux Falls? Because even a lousy week at Sioux Falls, for example, that if you made the top 8, you automatically got $4,000. Well, $4,000 is a ton of money for the people who did not have Sioux Falls and are trying to go to Poway and San Bernardino and Mona, Utah, and all these things, So, holy moly! Anyway, I have a few things that.
So, do you think that that's a bad idea?
No, I'm saying I think it's a very good idea that everyone take note of this situation.
You better play.
That the top 60 rodeos aren't going to have a boon out of this situation. But anyway, I have a few notes that I put together based on things that people called or texted me and asked me about. So because some of this stuff like we know and maybe not everybody knows, but for example, people were like, wait a minute. Why is Tanner Tomlinson not roping with Travis Graves at Sioux Falls? And I was even like, how can that be? They've been toward the top of the world all year and all this kind of stuff. Well, so anyway, I asked Travis, and the reason is, so Tanner Tomlinson roped with Colby Payne there. Well, the reason is because Colby roped with Clay Smith earlier in the year, and they won quite a bit in the wintertime. So Colby Payne got more points. I mean, this is all this gamesmanship stuff, but it's going to happen at the NFR too. Not everybody's partners made Sioux Falls. So there was a little bit of shifting around on that. And okay, so then yeah, there's so many things to this. Like, okay, I mentioned Clay Smith, so I'll just say, okay, then he shifted gears this year to rope with Nikki Northcott, who's 18 years old, and sadly, just in the last hour or so, when the PRC updated their standings, it looks like Nikki's 16th, ended up 16th. So anyway, some of the stories that were really noteworthy of people who Sioux Falls changed everything because they needed a lot from that rodeo, and there was nowhere else that offered enough for them. Luke Brown is going to his 16th NFR, and Trey Yates is going back exclusively because of Sioux Falls. Bailey Bates is going to her first national finals breakaway roping based on winning Sioux Falls. That was a thrill seeing that girl be 2-1 and win that on a borrowed horse. And she's a Navajo cowgirl, and Oates actually take me to the basis place on the reservation, and it's, you can't even say how many kids we're watching that and saying, well, she can do it, I can do it too, right? I mean,
Exactly.
very inspiring. Halen Lyde was maybe kind of toward the bottom barrel racer of the top 20. She wins Sioux Falls. This story of Trisha Aldridge, which all anybody talks about, is this Palomino stud that they call Adios, his Adios Pantalones. I mean, he's 5. And they're going, because of Sioux Falls, they're going to their first NFR. And my understanding is that she bought this horse as a weanling, and her hashtag that she has just made up for her and her boy Adios is, I think it's here to take over. I think that's what it is. But she's a character, and I can hardly wait to visit with her. And but he's the winningest fraternity horse of all time. It's like she's won like 600 grand on him at the fraternities or something. It's wild. But they were teetering on the bubble, and Sioux Falls got them in. Interesting note in the rough stock events at Sioux Falls that they used the half point system in the rough stock. So you saw quarter point scores. And
well, let's clarify that. So they did use the half point system, but
yes,
because there were 4 judges, right, you could get a quarter point. And this is the first time that they've done that.
Okay, so basically, so they take the 4 judges' scores divided by 4, but because each judge could go down to the half point, and they really used the quarter points. Like a lot of scores had either 0.25 or 0.75 in them. My understanding is that Canada does that, and then Steve Knowles confirmed today that they're going to do that at the NFR. So it's
Wow.
tie-breaking quarter points. In the past, in our record books, we did not have 93.25. So now are you going to
do you think it's a good idea that they have the ability to break those ties with that?
For me, it doesn't really matter what the spread is, as long as people finish in the right order. So what I think is about impossible, that to me is easier at an event like Sioux Falls or at the NFR. Okay, everybody goes, you have a full round in one night. That is so much easier than when you judge a rodeo that's a one header, and you have to gauge tonight's best ride against the best one from 4 or 5 days ago on opening night. Do you want to have to do that? I mean, that's really hard job.
Well, and what I was kind of getting at is you're not a proponent of, or it seems like in the past, of hundreds, right? Breaking the tie that way. The same, you could use the same argument against me here or against this, that great of a ride It's all the opinion of the judge, and both guys should win.
Okay, here's the difference to me. And don't call me a communist again. Okay. The difference here is,
I didn't call you a communist.
let me repeat. In the rough stock, all I care is that you order the rides in the correct order. I don't care if it's by 5 points or a quarter point. I don't give a shit. Just put them in the right order. That's all. And I think that any cowboy would be happy with that. It doesn't matter. The reason that hundreds do not yet make sense to me is because in the timed events, now, when there's an electric eye in the barrel race, absolutely, they do it every day. Great. Nobody's against it. But you take away that electric eye and see how everybody feels about it. If it was a handheld flag. So my reasoning to repeat myself, and I haven't wavered on this, is because you have a flagger with human reaction time and you have timers with reaction time. So to me, splitting that hair is pretty difficult.
And you have 4 judges with 4 different opinions, right? That can be just as 1/100th of a second off as the button. So I'm just saying, it doesn't feel like a person should advocate to split down a 1 point to a quarter point and not be okay with having double zeros on the backside of the. But let's just leave it at that.
I'm not advocating for whatever the quarter point, because I would have to ask a lot more rough stock guys before I would say what I think, because I'm for what the Cowboys think.
I think the biggest thing that I do think is important, and I had some discussions with the judges at Sioux Falls, I like the 4 judges in the field because they have different angles on the same side. Now, there was some conversations, this didn't happen, but there's conversations at some events where a certain judge just judges the animal. Now, let me, so you got 4 judges, or 3 judges. Let's say there's 3, and this didn't happen in Sioux Falls, 3. 1 is in the field. He's just judging the animal. 2 are judging the spur ride. Seemed like a pretty good idea. And then I had a relatively not heated, but a great debate about it with a few guys, because my thought was, look, a horse doesn't change how he bucks on either side, or a bull. If you see him on the one side, the other side's kicking too. You know what I mean? You can watch an animal on one side and judge him, where if you're judging a spur ride on each side, it's different. So that kind of made sense. Made sense to me. But anyway, I do like the 4 judges. My point was that some of that's being discussed, but I do like the 4 judges because of different angles and different viewpoints on the same side. Aggregating that together is probably going to give you the very best analysis from a human's perspective of that ride.
Well, just mention, because I don't know, because I don't think there was a definitive camera angle on television, but Jess Pope, when it got right down to it at the very end, their expert commentator for that event at Sioux Falls was Tim O'Connell, and he was absolutely dumbfounded that they said he missed him out. And that was a very high stakes situation. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if one judge just saw something nobody else saw, but Tim O'Connell, that's an expert opinion. And he's like, you do not see Just Pope miss horses out. And I'm telling you, like, he watched it and watched it and watched it. And he goes, I don't know. I'm looking at his feet. Interesting.
Yep.
Anyway. Okay. Also, sorry, that's phone I'm using as a hotspot.
Raw and real. That's what no spin is.
Yeah. Birthday callers. Interesting that in a format like Sioux Falls, where it's like clean slate, sudden death, you can draw the same calf or steer twice in the same rodeo. I think that's kind of interesting. No problem if you get the good one. If you get a tough one, it's tricky.
Yeah. So they had half enough cattle there?
Do you not?
Well, I think everybody, we lost Kendra. So I'm going to solo this a little bit until we get her back. We'll wait just a couple minutes for her to jump back on. Don't know what happened. That's what happens in Oklahoma, where most of the cell towers are on the back of buzzards. And they're flying around. The buzzards are trying to get the cell service to come back on. And I think Kendra's coming back. We will see. Right now, I just see a K. But I'll give this a couple minutes before we figure out what we're going to do. Unfortunately, we're live and unrehearsed here on No Spin Rodeo. And don't know why I can't see Kendra.
Hello?
But I'm not seeing her. I expected I'll get some text real quick. I will do an update. Hey, if you're listening to this tomorrow on the podcast, and it probably doesn't do you any good. If you're watching this live, Fox Sports 1 tonight is when they air the short go, an edited version of the short go on Fox Sports 1. And that's going to be at 8 to 10 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. And that is Central Standard Time, 8 to 10 Central Standard Time. 80 million people, have access to Fox Sports 1. So that's a handoff. That's a great deal that's happening on Fox Sports 1. And for the Governor's Cup, let me look and see if I have anything else while we get back. Kendra, I was going to bring this up when Kendra was on. 2 horses in the top 4. Now, remember at Sioux Falls, they went 8s on the last day. The top 4 advance in that performance for the last hurrah. And 2 steer wrestling horses, Crush and Banker. 2 guys rode each of those. Pretty. That tells you something about Crush and Banker. Those 2. She's crooked, but she's back.
Okay, you're upside down for me.
I'll turn your phone around because you're crooked. There you go. Now we can see you.
This is nuts. Let's see. So I don't know how to make it stay up like that because
So while you're messing with your phone, I did say that I thought it was cool that Crush and Banker, because you're a horse person, those 2 horses jockeyed the top 4 in the steer wrestling short go at the Governor's Cup, from what I read. Does your data show that?
Okay, so I was going to mention that. Okay, so I apologize. So I just completely went dark on you, I assume, when it cut out on me.
Yeah, you went dark and then you went away, and then we waited on you, and I talked about cell service in Oklahoma. So there you have it.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. Okay, so where I left off was saying that you could get the same calf or steer, and I will mention the horses here in a minute because I think it's definitely worthy of note. But also, when I was just mentioning you could get the same calf or steer twice with this format, like clean slate, sudden death and stuff. This format also allowed for something. It's a couple more interesting examples that I'll give. Caleb Driggers and Junior Nogata, they took the world lead for winning Sioux Falls. But does anybody remember that they were no time on their first steer?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, so, but they won the whole thing because they happened to make it back on one steer. Point being, I mean, you wouldn't dream that something like that would happen, but it did. So, okay, Kai Hamilton. This was interesting to me. Kai Hamilton's the only guy to ride in the final 4. Well, okay, first paid $32,000, but get this. Second place, Tristan Hutchins bucked off $24,000. Third place, Bryce Jensen bucked off $16,000. Fourth place, Quinn Anderson bucked off $8,000. That's better than most rodeos in the course of a PRCA season, and they bucked off. That's really pretty interesting. And I did get confirmation that it was based on, how they did in the previous round or whatever.
Which makes sense. That makes sense to me, right? Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean,
it's
because
just why
he won that round, but then when you got to do the placings, you would go to the next best, and it happened to be those guys because they advanced in the earlier round, almost like you would do a tiebreaker. So that actually makes sense. It makes more sense than him. Well, it would be cool, but you know, from the everybody needs a blue ribbon platform, giving him all the money, people wouldn't like that very much either in the competition side, right? So
it's very interesting. And so okay. And also worth noting that Kai was the high money winner of the whole thing, and he got a John Deere Gator for that. That's a very, very cool prize.
yeah, very cool.
So anyway, now you know, have we mentioned yet? Okay, obviously Rocker Center extended his lead at Sioux Falls by winning it. Is he going to be one and done like his dad and grandpa?
No. Are you asking my opinion on that?
I'm just saying, if he would win it, is he going to? Just curious. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
It's only a guess. We have no.
Yeah. No, I think he'll be here for a while. Okay. The problem is that's a tough event, and he will get wore out, like a lot of the guys that we think should still be good. It'll tear his body up eventually.
So just in the last hour-ish before we're doing this, we did get what appear to be final pending audit standings. And so 16th place, it's worth mentioning these poor guys. In the bareback riding, it's Mason Clements. In the steer wrestling, it's Mike McGinn, and he's become like a sweetheart to everyone. Like, I don't even know the guy yet, but everybody really likes that guy. Anyway, it is interesting to me. The same steer took Bridger Anderson, Mike McGinn, and Gavin Swallow out at Sioux Falls, just the way it went. But I did, we just, Sunday night, I knew in some events who had gotten in or not or whatever. And the first one I knew about, that it took till Tuesday to find out officially. But like, Gavin Swallow gets taken out at Sioux Falls. He chartered to San Bernardino 1 second on Jace Melvin's horse. And back to when you were talking about those horses, like the fact that Ty Erickson, who also was on the bubble, sent Crush to Sioux Falls for Rowdy Parrott and Stetson Jorgensen. That was awfully nice of him to do that. Anyway, in the team roping, 16th, Aaron Sinigini and Nikki Northcott. And there's some of these teams, one guy made it and one didn't. Lightning Aguilera made it in 15th, and Wyatt Cox, who he's been roping with, is 17th. Agus Guiza and Levi Lord, their partners didn't make it. Interesting. Presumably they will rope together at the finals. 16th, Lefty Holman in the bronc riding. That hasn't happened for a while. The bull riding, Luke Mast. Okay, so steer roping had a standalone event today, and I hadn't heard how that went, so I don't know who's 16th yet. The barrel race is Julie Plord and Martha Angeloni in the breakaway. And I will say, if people are watching this tonight, do not check the women's events on ProRodeo.com. Those are correct on WPRA.com tonight, and they're not yet updated on ProRodeo.com in the women's events. So there's that.
Well, and the rough stock events aren't over yet, Kendra. It's not set because you've got Binion's. You've got Binion's $60,000 added. Right. Duel in the Dunes. That's the 30th of September. So the rough stock's not set necessarily yet.
That's today.
Is that today?
That's today.
The 30th is today?
Yes.
I don't even know what day it is. Yep,
so,
today.
Yes. So I hadn't heard how that's gone. And so is that only, what all events is that?
Bears, Broncs, and Bulls. 20,000 in each one, I think. 3. Yep.
Oh,
20,
okay. Well, I
19 or
never
20
came out of that.
guys. There's a day sheet on prca.com. I looked at that. There's a day sheet on who's entered, and there's a few guys drawn out. I don't know why. But it was about 20 in each discipline. Now, the interesting thing with Binion is, will he have his great horses there? Will he buck colts? You kind of never know with Binion. So, we'll see how that turns out.
Well, okay.
And yeah, Q
anyway,
Taylor, bronc rider, he was number 20th and got in. That's who I was talking about. Saddle bronc rider. Or after Sioux Falls.
Q Taylor is 13th. Well, of course, this is all pending whatever's going on with the surveys today,
Right.
then, apparently.
Right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know what it pays to win first there, but I would imagine $7,000-8,000 anyway.
Okay. Well, anyway, there's a lot to talk about.
That's cool.
A lot going on there. Yeah. Anyway, do you want to roll through
Sioux Falls, great event. Yeah, I mean, just to end it on Sioux Falls, I'm an advocate of progressive. I'm an advocate of playoff series. I like that it's a combination. I think they found a really good balance. I think this makes for compelling competition and great stories. I understand where it's terrible if you were sitting 15th and a guy 20th because of what he does at Sioux Falls comes in and bumps you out. But just like you said, these guys are going to have to take these tour rodeos very, very seriously. And you better make sure that you're doing everything you can to not only get to the Governor's Cup, but to get to Puyallup and hit those tour rodeos. And, it's creating nice, friendly competition within the rodeo committee ranks. Everybody wants to be in that top 60, right? Because they know that they've got their best shot of the very best contestant. So that kind of wraps up Sioux Falls.
Yeah. And then there is there's that other side of the coin, though, that, some people say, you even mentioned it, sometimes there aren't enough contestants. And so if there are truly 828 rodeos in the PRCA, then 60 of them is an awfully small fraction, and then we have limits on every event on how many they can count. So again, how are we going to have enough contestants to go around? I'm not sure. But anyway.
Good question. That's that's why I brought it up. It's a valid thing. And it's valid. And, we talk, everybody gets really freaked out when you say tiering rodeo, but when you have the tour, essentially that's what you're doing. Okay, so here we go. Feedback. We'll go through feedback. I will read it. And then Kendra, you comment if you want, or I will. So I'm going to read the first feedback. It's from the 541 area code. During Pendleton Roundup, it was casually mentioned that the timed event cattle aren't drawn. The contestant gets whatever is pushed out of the pen and down the alley. Is that true?
Okay, so it's not the same in every event. I think what this person probably referring to is when we were talking about, hey, this thing happened with Tyler Waters and Kyle Lockett, and they had to do a rerun. And we were saying you can't see which steer. They do draw the team repping steers, but you can't see it till it's sort of too late. So that was what we were talking about that. So the deal at Pendleton, I called my Northwest connection, Tony Curran, to just double check. They do draw the timed event cattle in the team roping, steer wrestling, steer roping, and breakaway, but they shoot run them in the calf roping. And Tony said tradition, or the way it's always been done, is my only explanation. I don't know any other reason why they do it in the calf roping and not the others. They draw the others. So that's the answer to that question.
Wow, that doesn't seem normal. Okay, I don't have any comment. I have no idea, but now I know, just like the rest of the no spinners. Thank you, Kendra. 719 Colorado. Why do the TV production crews focus the cameras on the timed event competitors' faces instead of showing the TV fans the start of the run? They zoom in so close, then often don't have time to swing the view to the actual competition when it starts. In addition, someone needs to tell the cameraman that it's okay to show the breakaway calf getting roped. As a fan, those two issues are very aggravating to watch again and again. Now, you being definitely a timed event enthusiast, do you seem to think that that's aggravating when they do the tight shot of the bulldogger to show him not?
Well, it's kind of interesting to me. For one, camera manning is an absolute art form, and the ones who are really savvy to our sport can be really good at it. One thing I do notice lately is the tight shots, particularly if you're a breakaway roper and God forbid your left eye has your mascara smudged, the camera shot is showing it now. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not sure why they're doing that exactly. But anyway.
Well, because you show them, the same argument could be, I'll answer that. The same argument is when you're in the buck and shoot, you show the guy take a wrap, get his stirrups, go up, and you watch him nod. The same thing is that you get an up and close. This is how you develop people so they put names with faces, right? If you watch everybody from the wide iPhone lens so you can see exactly, then you'd make less of an effort to to build fan bases and people understand who this guy is besides just his name and his dollar winnings beside it.
That's
now, I think they
great.
got to cut to the action quick.
Yes. And God forbid if Betty doesn't pluck her chin hair, we're going to see it. But okay. But anyway, okay.
You're on TV now. Sorry, we're not at the jackpot round pin where, you're on Fox Sports 1, for God's sake.
Here's the thing. And I realize there are different budgets and different numbers of camera people at various rodeos. Goodness knows if you're talking about Houston, Texas, we have every angle ever, and it's fabulous. Okay. I love the angles that show in the timed events that show the start. I love the angles that show, they were doing it at Sioux Falls. If they could go and show a replay of, Banker's chest stretching the barrier rope, or, Swamper breaking it with his nose or whatever, and that, when for hardcore rodeo people, that's really interesting, those sorts of things. There's an absolute art to showing that person. Now, how tight you have to get on their face, I don't know, because personally, I find it interesting if you're doing a head-on, say if it's a calf roper or a breakaway roper, or the other side, a header or a bulldogger. Well, I'm interested because I'm interested. I want to see what that horse is doing. Now, if you're zoomed in on the bulldogger's face and all of a sudden the face is flopping around, well, I'm interested. Is what's going on? I mean, maybe the hazing horse is having trouble. Maybe the calf horse is squatting or whatever. Like, that's interesting to me. And it's also interesting to me when people are like, well, not already. Well, the shot that shows that the steer or the calf's head is turned, that's interesting to me. It's like, well, that's why they're waiting. And so, but as for showing, it is frustrating to me, per this person's point, when they don't show a loop going on. There's no excuse for that in any event. So every loop should be shown going on. And there's also, you can artfully pan from the person getting their slack to, if for sensitivities you need to then pan to the horse, fine. But you can show the catch and the getting of the slack before you have to do any fancy maneuvering.
Have you ever ran a camera?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, it's a little trickier.
Here's the thing.
Than you think.
I've stood with at least hundreds of camera people, and what I'll say is, some of those people have told me they're being paid $50 a perf, and they're there in a ball cap and tennis shoes, and they're not rodeo people, and they're being paid $50 a perf. Occasionally, I have stood with people at the side where I was videoing my kids or whatever at a pro rodeo.
Yeah.
You're saying no?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, yeah, every rodeo has their own budget, and there's different qualified video production companies. But I'm just saying,
I'm not ripping people. No, I
it's a
haven't
little
done it.
harder to make sure you get a nice clean shot of that loop and then get the entire slack and stay sensitive to the things that you can't put on TV. Now, breakaway roping, that's just someone not directing right? The director decides the shots. He tells the cameraman what to shoot. The whole breakaway roping should be shot. There's no excuse for that.
Well,
I get that.
what
But
I was
the
going to
tie
say
down
was,
on those guys that
the
are fast,
it's the instructions. It's what instructions those people. I'm not shredding camera people. I think where people do get frustrated is occasionally something happens, and it's happened recently when I was watching, and like they miss the whole run. It doesn't happen a lot, but when grandma's watching from a few states away, of course she wants to see, and we all want to see. But anyway, I'm the fact of how much television we have now is appreciated by everyone, bottom line. And I'm just saying, just as there are people in both of our lines of work, and there are people in every part of rodeo that have done it forever, or maybe they're new, or maybe this or that or whatever. There's a wide range in people and their level of experience and different things like that. So I appreciate
there's good and there's bad in all of it. And then there's medium, right? And when you go through on everything on TV, regardless of the budget, that's what you get. That's what you get. And if you sit there and watch 24 hours of Cowboy Channel, you're going to find something not good. Promise you. All right, 417 area code. Don't know where that's at. 417. In regards to only a percentage of Calgary counting towards the world standings, is that for only Calgary or all Canadian PRCA sanctioned rodeos? That's part one. Do you have an answer for that, Kendra?
I do. So the 80% at Calgary counts toward the world standings. 100% of all other Canadian rodeos counts. That was confirmed by the PRCA today. So everywhere but Calgary is 100%.
Now, I thought this was interesting. The second half is, if it's for all, it would probably be the exchange rate for Canadian money to U.S. money, since it's the standings, I presume. All of it is converted into U.S. dollars. Love the show. Thank you. Do you know if they convert it? So if you win $5,000 in Canada, right, it's worth, I'm making it up, 4,500 of U.S. dollars. Do they get the 5,000 on U.S. earnings, or do they get the exchange rate?
Can I call in a lifeline from the next
phone a friend?
Hey, do you know the answer? Can you hear Tommy Joe from where you are? Yeah. Okay, if you win 50,000 at Calgary, then 50,000 counts in the U.S. World Standings and the PRCA World Standings, right? Correct.
Yep. So to answer your question, 417, they get the full exchange rate added in. You get the full 50,000, not what the Canadian $50,000 is worth in U.S. funds. Good answer. Good question. Like that question. Next one. This is from JD. I don't have a area code. Love the show. I'm sure someone has told you this, but the story I heard is that the robot, now we're hearkening back to remember the video we showed when the guy came out and hit the robot, and Liesel threw the thing at him and then jerked him down on the dirt and beat the hell out of him. So this person says the robot was actually Liesel Harris's son. I can answer that. In 95% of the times, that is true. Liesel's son was with him, and many, many, many times. And I do recall, now I could be corrected if I'm wrong, but he was in the robot suit a lot. I don't know if it was exactly that time.
So it's the point that Liesel's son was in the robot suit, but for those who didn't see it, somebody came out and did they tackle the robot or something, and then Liesel beat the crap out of him in the arena.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, and I don't know if they're insinuating that Liesel really got angry because it was his son. Maybe that had something to do with it, but I think it was more that someone was screwing with Liesel entertaining the crowd and was drunk and it irritated him. And by the way, when you slap makeup on and go into the arena every night and you do that for 40 something years, some of this stuff becomes irritating, guaranteed. So yeah, but to answer your question, Liesel Harris' son was in the robot costume. I don't think exclusively, but definitely a lot of times. Okay, 2 more feedbacks. This one from the 307 came in today. So this feedback says, why is it that it takes so long for the WPRA and the PRCA standings to be updated? Shouldn't they be updated as soon as these major events are done? Yes, I think they should in today's day and age. I don't know how they are doing it, and I can understand a caution to not release something that's not correct. And maybe they're auditing all of this stuff from way back, but one could think could be audited up to date, and you plug this in, not making excuses for them. And it does say these are unofficial standings on the site, which is a good security blanket. I would put unofficial everything on everything if I was looking at the distribution from some of those channels. But, so the point of this particular viewer is, doggone it, we want to see this updated quickly, because I know, as well as I do, that the athletes knew exactly how it affected them, right? Didn't they? Didn't they all know?
I went with Cowboy Math on Sunday night, but also I think a little bit probably why the PRC is taking a little bit of a hard time over this is because the people on the ground at Sioux Falls, they were doing it like, I started for the PRC in 1987. Back then, we were doing this all on notepads, okay? We were doing it on notepads with phone calls and, the PRCA media department had to, we called them bootleg standings. We did all this by hand. Then Sherry Compton input the bootleg standings. We ran the standings so that we could report on it on Monday morning. The people in Sioux Falls, they were in real time. They were updating stats. Like they were like, hey, so-and-so just won this. That will put him from 17th to 14th right as of this minute, as of, they had it dialed in, and I think
unofficially.
It's all unofficial, but it's always been that, the standings today that the PRCA has, it's always been that for a week or so, it's all under audit. After okay, today's the last day of the regular season, and then pencils down, nothing else can be added in, but it all gets audited for a week or so, and that's where every once in a blue moon it's come up where, oh, they can only count 80 rodeos, and this guy had 81. We have to back his 81st rodeo out, and we have every once in a while that happens, not very often, but the cowboys and cowgirls, they know it to the penny as it's happening. But the PRCA, they're trying to do it with a system that maybe has a few glitches. I'm not exactly sure, but
well, I did hear that they're revamping the system. I know they've got a new secretary system. I don't know how that works, but I know that we are significantly behind the times in the IT game. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, the truth is that with AI technology and pinpointing and cameras, they can put a point on the spurs of the bareback riders and a mark on the animals and tell with AI if a guy missed a horse out on either side 100% accurately, period. That can be done today. Now, we don't do it. A lot of money, a lot of stuff. But like we've talked about, there's a lot of stuff out there that they're using in other sports that is real and works. But it's neither here nor there. I'm not dogging the current situation. The reality is we could probably get a few gears on that and probably are working towards that, in fairness to everybody. I'm sure that that's an effort in process, right, and frustrating for those of us that are waiting on that. Put it
Well,
that way.
it's painful. I'm sure. Gavin Swallow was excited Sunday night at San Bernardino, but at 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, it still said he was not in the top 15. You know what I mean? So that's hard to sweat. And then poor Mike McGinn was 15th till about 2 hours ago, but he knew, I'm sure he knew. And my understanding on him was that, like, Gavin went to San Bernardino, that Mike McGinn, when he got knocked out at Sioux Falls, walk-up replaced at Mona, Utah. So anyway, it's a long year. And when it
Gamesmanship. Yeah, it's gamesmanship.
oh,
Yeah.
anyway.
So this is the last one, and it comes from Colorado 719. And I think this one's kind of funny, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. It says, have you guys noticed that Rocker's dad is in every camera shot? Rocker Steiner, I'm sure that's what they're in reference to. And by the way, No Spinner, I have noticed that. I noticed that he was down, it looked like, in the arena in the Witters interview. I don't know why. Maybe Rocker wants him there. Maybe they want a two-shot of those two. Maybe they want to show family. But he does make a lot of cameo appearances in with Rocker. That's what I've noticed. It does seem like that anyway. So I think that's interesting that we would get a No Spinner that just said, hey, have you noticed? So that's kind of, it is interesting if you think back. He's in a lot of shots. In a lot of shots. So thank you, No Spinners, for sending us that information. Continue to reach out to us with questions. We do appreciate them. As you can tell, we had a little bit of technical problems on the sell side today, but we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Final thoughts, Kendra?
I would love to say one, and I apologize because the technical difficulty is in Shakota. It's my fault. So, but on a happy note, to end it on a happy note, the quote absolute dispersal sale of Teton Ridge performance horses. I know that a horse sold for $5.6 million. That mare Allspice sold for $5 million. A happy, very directly related to rodeo note is that Brittany Posey Tanazi and a partner were able to buy her great mare Birdie back. And it's very public, $500,000. But there was a picture I saw of, there's Brittany and Garrett, her husband, and her little girl Tinley, and they've just obviously gotten the winning bid, and she just breaks into tears. And then she posted a deal where she's petting Birdie, and she said, "Welcome home, Birdie." And it's like, oh, that was pretty sweet.
Well, it's funny that you brought that up. I heard this in Sioux Falls, and don't hold me to it, but I think it's an interesting take. When a lot of us heard that Teton Ridge was doing a dispersal sale, you immediately start to say, what's up? You guys bought the Cowboy Channel, you're doing all of this stuff, and you're selling a major part of your Western lifestyle business. Does that indicate that you guys are hurting, getting out, whatever? An interesting take on this that I heard in Sioux Falls was that I think that their event, the American Performance Horseman, I think is what it's called, but their event that they put on during the American that has the 3 disciplines of horsemen and that they produce and that they televise and that they sell, that it could be that, they bought they had their own endorsees and trainers on their ranch and bought pretty much the gold fleece of all of the horses. And those people competed in the event. And that maybe that was a conflict of interest to have your own players in your own event. Now, again, just a comment, right? And it may be that there's something to that. There's always a little bit of truth in everything. There may be something to that they just thought it was in their best interest to liquidate that part of the business and focus on the events and the performance horsemen and the American and those type of things. It doesn't look like Teton Ridge is slowing down in the broadcast area, i.e. Fox Tonight. Again, like I said, when Kendra was off, it's on tonight. Watch it. Put the viewership on there. Turn it on TV. Rodeo needs it. It's going to be a good product. It'll be well produced. So I love that. Though that's a charming story.
Rory Lemmel said that it has the ability to reach 80 million homes, rodeo. And so, that doesn't mean 80 million people are going to tune in, but to have that potential reach is tremendous for sure.
It is. Well, everybody, thank you. Thanks to my friend in the Oklahoma hills out there for joining us, Kendra Santos. Thank you guys very much for listening to No Spin Rodeo. Thanks for those of you that tuned in live, and we'll see you next week. Who knows? Never know what we're going to do, if we'll be on, if we won't, but we'll be here. We'll be here next Tuesday. Join us for No Spin Rodeo. Thanks a lot. God bless you all, and be safe out there.